We working our way across here. Let's go to setup. Setup is just as it sounds. This is kind of like creating the architecture of the console. All right. If I want to change the layers, like we talked about, I've got these empty layers down here. What do I want to do with these layers, right? That's a setup function. If I want to change all of the channels that we have coming into the console can be made to behave as input, as stereo channels, or they can be individual mono channels. That's under this setup window. You can see that right now we've got channels 15, 16, channels 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 are all set up as stereo channels. Well, why is that? Well, if I look on my first layer here, I can see that that's keys, keys to organ, and tracks. Those are all stereo instruments, right? So to make my life easy, I just went into the setup mode and I changed those channels to be stereo channels. That way I've got one fader. If I adjust EQ or do something, it affects the whole signal, not just one side of it, right? Likewise, I've got a function called ganging. What's ganging? All right, so ganging is kind of like stereo functionality, except I could make as many channels as I wanted. All right, so let's demonstrate this. All right, I already have a gang set up for channels 1 and 2. I'm going to undo that. That was when I was changing and when I was testing the personal mixer. So we're going to undo all of that. By the way, when you make setup changes like this on this console, Allen Heath has a function. They'll give you an apply button when you make a change. You'll see when I changed the channels that were in this gang, it made me apply it before it actually took that command. All right, that's kind of to save you from yourself. That's like a confirmation. You want to do this? Yes, you want to do this. But I could do that and then change screens and go somewhere else, and my change never happened because I never hit the apply button, right? Okay, so let's just build a gang just to show you how this works. So I'm going to go here to our microphones. What a gang would do is, let's just say for some crazy reason, I've got 5 choir mics up there. I don't really know why we would do this, but anyway, I got 5 choir mics up there, and I want to make all 5 choir mics behave as one, right? Obviously, I can't use an input stereo function because there's more than 2, right? So what this allows me to do, I can go into this ganging function, and I can take whatever channels that I want to have and drag them down into this gang. All right, and then I want to decide which functions do I want to have working together and which functions do I want to have separate. All right, I want all of them to have the same trim, delay, fader position, mute, EQ, routing. I want everything except for panning, because I want to pan one of the mics all the way to the left, one further in, one in the center, one to the right, one to the far right, right? So I want panning to be separate, but I want everything else to be joined. So I've got my channels in my gang. I've decided what functions I want to have joined together, and I hit apply. All right, so let's go see what happened. Come down here to my microphones. You can see what I've got going on here now is I've got like a bionic stereo channel, right? So where you might use this is something that's more than 2 channels, or maybe it's something that you want to join together the faders, but you don't want any other things to change. And I'll give you an example of that. I was doing an orchestra show the other day, and we had 2 mics on the piano. We had kind of a low left-hand mic and a kind of a high right-hand mic for the piano, right? I want those to behave like one fader, but I'm going to have different EQ on the low mic than I have on the high mic. So I would create a gang, and the only thing that I would link between them is just the faders. So now the only thing that's happening is the volume changes together, but other than that, I can change the EQ of one mic and have it different from the other mic. I can change even the gain or the trim on one different than the other, but I still have the convenience of the control. So those are functions where I might use a gang instead of an input stereo. All right, so we're gonna undo all of this.
We've had some at least one I know that we could have used that. Like we didn't have like a bass. You were playing more low end.
Yeah. All right. So that stuff that's under the setup tab. One of the things that you'll use the most under the setup tab is this surface. And you'll see whenever you go into one of these screens, you'll often see buttons on the left and tabs on the top. That just means that there's more information there that they can't fit all on one screen, right? So if I wanted to create my custom layer for Sunday morning, the place that I would do that would be under the setup button, strip assign, and then literally on the top, it gives me all of my inputs, right? I can also select from the effects, the output mixes, and DCAs. We'll talk about that later. Right now I'm just concerned about inputs, okay? So I know for myself, I'm on layer D. So I'm gonna come down here and on this layer button down here, I'm gonna select D, all right? Now, if I drag this kick fader onto layer D and drop it, boom, there it is, right? So I know for myself that generally when I get the drums dialed in, I don't necessarily change the level of the toms and the overhead cymbal mics and all of that very much. But I will change the level of the kick and the snare, right? So on Sunday morning, I want my kick and snare to be on my main layer, but I'll just leave the rest hidden up here on layer 1, right? So I'll do kick, snare, I'll skip the rest of the drums, then I'll go bass, then I'll go, there's only one guitar this morning, so I'll go lead guitar, there's no acoustic 1, there's only an acoustic 2, that's fine. We've only got 2 keys, not 3, that's fine, etc., etc. I can just go all the way across here and build what I want, okay? That's under the setup menu, strip assign, all right? Now, if we look at the tabs across the top here, the other one that you might want to be aware of is soft controls. All right, what's soft controls? Well, that is all of this and all of, well, on this console, it's all of these buttons. So it's buttons here, knobs and buttons here, and labels, buttons here, all right? So I can decide what kind of functions I want to have these knobs do, and they can be an amazing variety of things, all right? So let's just say, for example, I want to have, I've got my custom layer set up, and I know that I might have a song being played from the computer, but I don't want to take up my precious real estate just in case we play a song from the computer, right? So I could come up here, and you can see up here on these buttons, these displays, it says soft 1, soft 2, soft 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all right? So I'm gonna choose soft 8, all right? And, well, sorry, I need soft rotaries, not soft keys, soft rotaries. I'm gonna choose soft 8. I'm gonna come up here to the menu and click that right there, and again, this button lights up, so that means I can scroll. All right, I'm gonna have it be a, let's see here. I'm gonna have it be a main level fader. Okay, hit that. And then I can choose what I want it to be. All right, I'm gonna make it, we don't have a computer channel set up in here yet, but I'm just gonna make it be tracks, there, okay. And the key function, I'm gonna make that be the mute channel, the mute. All right, so, and, oh, guess what? It asked me to apply, right? It doesn't want me to mess something up accidentally, so I hit apply. You can see this lit up, meaning there's something there. This now will light up if I mute it, and this becomes the level. All right, so now let's just look at something interesting here. So if I'm on the main layer and I'm looking at my tracks, what happens when I turn this button?
It's gonna fade up.
It's just the same as if I was controlling the fader, right? And if I mute it, it's just the same as if I was controlling the mute. Exact same thing. So this right here is like a gold mine of things that you might want to get to, but you don't necessarily want to waste a fader spot on it. Or maybe it's stuff that you always want to have at hand, regardless of what layer that you're on. I mean, you could have one of these be pastor's mic. You could have one of these be, tracks playback or anything you want, right? So that's where, again, we're in setup. We're in surface, the surface box or surface button, and we're on the soft controls tab. All right. Then you have foot switch, which you don't need that. Surface preferences, this is more like things that you want the surface to do. This is where you adjust the brightness of the touch screen. This is where you change the brightness of these LEDs, like the LEDs and the buttons. You can change the channel strip brightness LEDs, those. You can change the brightness of that light bar up top. And you can also change the color of that if you want. Those are all in this preference menu. All right? Questions about that? Does that make sense? All right, you guys are scaring me by not asking any questions. I feel like I feel more comfortable if you ask me questions. So if you think of something, hit me.
Well, some of that stuff we've already, or I've used. I mean,
Okay.
so it's kind of.
It's Allen and Heath.
Except for like switching it to all this stuff, that was cool.
Yeah, so it's very similar to what you've been doing. It's just Allen and Heath's particular way of doing it.
Right.
But if you kind of get that mental connection of, oh, hey, this is what I did before, it's just that Allen Heath calls it this.
Yeah.
Or it's on this screen, right? Okay, so we're going to jump into just running through the channel real quick, and we're going to pretend that we have hooked up a new input into the board, and we're just kind of starting from scratch. And what are kind of the steps that I would take to set up that mic or instrument and get it into the PA.